What's going on, everyone? It's Bales, and welcome back to another episode of AFL Fantasy Head2Head, where we put two players up against one another to see who we'd pick between the two for the upcoming season. This is episode 12 of the series. If you haven't checked out the other 11 episodes, make sure that you do, wherever you saw your podcast or on YouTube. And also make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star rating review, all that good stuff. We very much appreciate all the support you guys have shown so far in the series. Joining me is the first member of the PODPOD as our special guest on this episode today. He's also a member of the coaches panel as well and does plenty of good things around the fantasy community. It is Lewy, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me. Keen to talk about these two players. Very closely matched in price, and I think they're going to be featuring in a lot of backlines this year. So, yeah, let's get stuck into it, Dissect these two.
Yep, exactly right. It's good to be getting stuck in now after me stuffing up the intro that you guys won't hear like a couple of times. The worst start I've had in the whole series. But we'll get into the two players we're talking about, which is Heath Chapman and Zach Williams, both under 500k and both very relevant this year, especially with the defence showing a bit of value this year and a lot of those top-end prems like a Nick Dacos on a buy that maybe a few people are steering away from. So guys like Heath Chapman and Zach Williams making up people's defence could be a good way to go. So Heath Chapman, 494k, owned by 9.16%, and Zach Williams at 442k with 37.08%. So both, so Williams selected by a lot of people, Chapman not as many, but still nearly 10%, which is a decent number at this stage of the preseason. So I'll be taking Heath Chapman and Lewy will be taking Zach Williams. So we'll run through Heath Chapman first, being the more expensive player. So Heath Chapman didn't really play much last year. Unfortunately, just injury really limited him to just the 3 games last year for rounds 1 to 3. Put up 69, 85, and 72 points. 69 was in the previous year. So he went 85 in round 1, 72 in round 2. Then he was injured on 24 in round 3. Only played 54% time on ground. Played a couple of games in the waffle back end of the year, only sort of 51 to 32. They're probably managed. And I don't even know if he got injured in one of them because he played round 15, round 17 in a waffle, then didn't play again. So, yeah, very, very bad year for him in terms of just injury, just not really being able to get on the park. But we did see him show some promise in the year before in 2022. He's obviously going to be the one thing is you don't have to worry about best 22. He's in for his best 22, and that's what we're after. But he put up some pretty solid scores in his second season in 2022, playing most of the games here. So I'll just run through a few of these decent scores he got there. So he scored 84 against West Coast in round 3, and 83 against GWS in round 4. He then scored an 89 against North Melbourne in round 8. Then he scored his only career fantasy ton in round 11 against Melbourne, where he scored 100 points there. He also then scored a 93 in the waffle the following week. I'm not sure why he played waffle there. Then he didn't play for a few weeks. Might have got dropped potentially. Then scored an 84 against Sydney in round 18 there. And then the 95 against the Bulldogs in round 21. And then the 95 as well in round 24 against the Bulldogs. Again, I'm assuming that would have been the final. So we've seen some good numbers of him. And with Hayden Young moving into the midfield, it's going to free up a lot of ball back there for a guy like Heath Chapman to come in. So with Hayden Young moving into that midfield, he's been training full time in the preseason. So I expect that to be his role. Heath Chapman, there's a lot more disposals to go around for him there. So Lewy, I'll go to you for this bit on Heath Chapman. So as I mentioned with Young moving in the midfield, do you expect to see Heath Chapman not only just get his sort of natural progression from just another preseason under the belt? He's obviously missed last year, so he's going to be raring to go. And then also the fact just more responsibility in that back line. Do you expect to see him get a bump in his scoring and potentially be a good pick for us in 2024?
Yeah, I think that's a strong possibility, mate. With Young going into that midfield, it opens up a massive spot in defence there. You've obviously got Alex Pearce and Brendan Cox that can play pretty tall, locked down. Luke Ryan's proven he can do that as well, but can also be a really solid interceptor. Third tall type, so that sort of leaves your Geordie Clarks and your Heath Chapmans to sort of take up that rest of the pill. So there's definitely a world where I can see Heath Chapman taking a bit of a jump this year. Obviously, has been a little bit curtailed by injury, but it's easy to forget that this guy's only played 24 games. He's 22 years old, and it seems like he's had a pretty uninterrupted preseason. So with the spot opening down back, hopefully we can see Heath Chapman down there, and there's even a little bit of talk of wings. So it'll be interesting to see where he settles, Bales. I'm interested to know what you think he's going to be doing this year, because it seems like there's a little bit of just unpredictability about Freo. There's been a lot of movements and sort of things touted recently. We got Fife coming into the midfield. Young, obviously, we spoke about. Aish to half-back, O'Meara forward. They're definitely doing a shuffle to see how this team can sort of best play their best footy. And Heath Chapman, he's a little bit of a new addition, a little bit like a trade target, because he did only play those 3 games last year.
Yeah, and it seems to be there's a few players that Freo are locked in, like Brayshaw, Sarong, Alex Pearce, Brennan Cox, and then a couple of those forwards. They're all locked into their positions, right? But as you said, there's a lot of moving pieces there. Is Jeremy Sharp going to play on a wing? Sounds like he's having a good preseason. I think he does come in the side, which means I think Chapman plays more of a half-back role that might rotate further up the ground and play a little bit like what Ethan Hughes has done for Freo in the past. So, sort of playing that sort of wing half-back role, but I anticipate to be more half-back. If Young sort of plays midfield and goes back into defence, that might then and I have stints in defence that might push Chapman up to a wing. So it's going to be a good preseason watch and sort of interesting to see where he sort of settles into the position. But I anticipate to be halfback. Is that what you see as well? Do you see it more halfback?
Yeah, I think it's more halfback, just also due to his versatility as well. He's quite tall, so that'll be handy with picking up perhaps a couple of intercept marks, which we've seen in the past. He's pretty handy in that respect back in 2022, mate. Some of these mark tallies are just ridiculous, and ended up averaging 6.2 marks a game in his second year of football, which is really just seriously impressive. We're talking about guys like Doherty, Whitfield, Isaac Smith. They all averaged 6 marks last year. So for him to be up in that company is pretty esteemed ground. And yeah, being as young as he is and with as little football as he's played, there's definitely a lot of room for improvement there.
Yeah, 100% agreed there. And yeah, it's going to be good to see him back on the field, because you sort of don't like seeing players just continually getting injured. So hopefully he gets a good run at it. He's now 22, so hopefully now he can go and have a few seasons without getting many injuries. But we'll sort of use this point to sort of then lead into Zach Williams. But a few people might be watching this thinking, what's the point of picking a guy like Heath Chapman, and then even a Zach Williams, for people that might not have watched him too much when sort of he was at the Giants, and even his first year at Carlton, where he was actually able to score quite well. Why are these picks so useful, Lewy, to be picking in your side, especially in a line like the defensive line, where there might not necessarily be a huge amount of premium options that you sort of want to lock in your side?
Yeah, these guys are quite nice because you can sort of bank your scoring and you can bank a nice amount of cash generation at the same time, which is ideally what the early game is about. And quite often these guys coming in priced as low as what they are, if they can pop a score nice and early, or at least put up some consistently high scores over those first couple of weeks, then you really start getting your cash generation working for you quickly. And you can start to move up to some of the guys that we might have a little bit more confidence in. So these mid-price players wouldn't be surprised to anybody who's played fantasy over the last couple of years. They can seriously win you the car, and they can get you up into hat contention pretty quickly. So if you can land these early and identify that they're going to outperform their price by 25, 30, sometimes even 40 points, then you're onto a winner quite quickly, and you can start to use your cash that you've generated from there a little bit later on to improve your side and get even more points on your squad.
Yeah, exactly right. Couldn't have put it any better myself. Probably you put it even better than me anyway. So, but we'll move to Zach Williams. So the one tricky thing with him is he's cheap, but he's got to buy. We'll touch on the buy in a sec. So we'll just go sort of into Zach Williams in terms of like numbers and why you think, Lewy, he's a good pick for some coaches in 2024.
Yeah, mate. Well, this one's honestly too easy. So we all know Zach Williams' history, don't we? He's got multiple seasons in the 80s, career high average of 93, and what does he come in priced at 48? So straight away, I mentioned those numbers before. 25 to 40 points upside. Well, you've got it there, and you've seen it for multiple seasons. And Zach Williams is the sort of player that can get on a bit of a run in terms of his fantasy scoring. He's a high kick mark player. He's shown that over a number of years, and really it's only been injury that sort of stopped his career from progressing the way that we probably thought it would post 2019 when he moved over to Carlton. In the last 4 years, 11, 14, 9, and then 0 games. So it doesn't give you a whole lot of confidence in his body. But like I said at the top, this is a player that we only need a good sort of 6 weeks out of to get that price rise and to be able to jump off to somebody else. So, yeah, super important. He's got that ceiling too. Even in 2022 when he last played, he popped a 137. Different Carlton side, I understand that. But I think if he can get into the sort of low 80s at a starting point, then we're well on our way to generating that cash. And what is that straight away? That's 30 points upside, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's well, you look for, like, we took for mid price in the midfield, like 25 points would be great. But if you're getting a defender that's going 30 points over what they're priced at, that's a smash pick, and you've essentially got to pick them regardless. But the buy is the little thing that sort of adds a little bit of intrigue into the pick. So he's got the buy in round 2, but a lot of people have said your premiums, like your top end ones, especially your midfielders, you're probably steering away from, and even a guy like a Nick Dacos defense, a few people, he's quite a split player. A few people are starting, a few people aren't. With a guy like Williams and these mid prices, it's almost, could it be a good thing, Lewy, that they've got the opening round, because they're going to have 2 price rises after round 1. So if he has a couple of good weeks, he could go up in price like a lot. Do you think this could actually almost work in a good way, because we actually get to look at Williams in opening round?
Yeah, I think it will, mate. We know what we're looking for with Williams. I think the line that I've seen just around Twitter and listening to some podcasts is about 80, which is super achievable for him. And I'd even go as far to say that what we've seen from him in the past sometimes is that he can have a little bit of a flaw, but he makes up for it with his ceiling. So I would even be suggesting that perhaps if he doesn't score as well as what we would like in the opening round, and he does have the role that we like, provided that the break even doesn't skyrocket. I'm not talking, dropping to 30 on our heads here, but let's say he's around that 65, 75 mark. I think he's still really worth actually picking, because if he does pop that score early, then he gets you on your way really quite quickly.
Yeah. And as you say, it's a little bit different with him and Heath Chapman. They're similarly priced, but they're different in terms of Heath Chapman's quite young in his career. Williams has had a lot of years in the system, but just hasn't quite got a good run, as you said, especially since he's got to Carlton. And yeah, this could be a pick where he takes it to like insane levels in terms of averaging potentially. I wouldn't be shocked if he averaged 90 and he puts up 40 odd points on top of his head. Like, we've seen it before. If Doherty's playing up on a winger in the midfield, then could you see a world where he averages around that 90 mark if everything goes to plan?
Yeah, well, I probably could, mate. I think that'd be around the top end of what he can score. But you mentioned Doherty, and that's a big part of why I've got a bit of confidence in him, because back in 2022, when Williams was playing footy, he was third in line for the kick-ins, and that was behind Doherty and Sard. So with Doherty up on the wing now, he's obviously not taking any kick-ins. You look at 2023, McGovern took the lion's share. Look, that may continue. They might like him in that role, but I can definitely see Zach Williams, jostling for position there. Sard comes in second. You'd think that they want the speed a little bit further up the ground for that line-breaking abilities. And then Newman was third in line, who, him being back there, I can actually see as a positive for Williams, with a little bit of chip potentially if they're trying to take a little bit of speed off the ball. So, plenty of upside there for Williams, and you always feel a little bit safer picking a guy who has been there, who's climbed the mountain, done it before over multiple seasons, over somebody like a Chapman, who is still a pretty decent pick, pretty high on him myself as well. But you are you're banking on the breakout, and you don't always know if that's going to happen. And just backing over a Chapman, there's a lot of experience in that side, mate. And I did mention Geordie Clark is going to be on that other flank too. You've got Luke Ryan, Pearce, Cox. All those guys have played plenty of football together. And Chapman coming in, having played very little footy over the last couple of years, let's be honest, he might not just be that go-to guy yet, even though he's shown quite a bit of potential.
Yeah, and that's a good point you raised as well, because you've still got Luke Ryan there, you've got Jordan Clark there, and if Young does spend any sort of time in defence as well, then he's probably going to be another guy that's going to take balls. So it's almost like there's more mouths to feed at Freo than there is at Carlton, but there's more experienced names at Freo compared to like a Heath Chapman, whereas Williams is going to be one of the more experienced players anyway. And you said with Newman and Williams, I could actually see a lot. I can picture in my head now Newman taking a kick in, little short 15-meter kick into the pocket to Williams, or vice versa, Williams taking the kick in, little short 15-meter kick to Nick Newman. I could just see that being a really sort of potent combo if they just want to sort of just get an extra sort of 15, 20 meters on a kick. So we'll definitely have to see how that all plays out in the preseason. But yeah, so what you were saying, you would rather see the role, but maybe the score be a little bit down for Williams, but you'd still be happy to pick him. But is there a line in terms of the score that he'd be, if he had the role and he hit that you'd sort of pick him?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, it's fantasy scoring is not linear. If he does pop that 70, 75 in the opening round, but he does have a nice role, and yeah, I don't have too many dramas picking him, even despite that buy. In fact, I think a lot of people will get scared off. They'll jump off, and in which case you might have a little bit of a point of difference on your hands, and have that extra cash where other players are having to trade into him post buy potentially.
Yeah, and I think that for me, it's I think it's the role is, as you said, more important. But if he puts up a 90+ squat, that's just an added bonus, because then you just have him in your side. He's going to make a lot of cash post round one, because obviously he's going to have the 2 price rises, and then you're on your way, and then he's hopefully going to rise up in cash very, very quickly. But it is time to pick out of the 2 players who we would be picking out of the head-to-head battle. So, Lewy, mate, who would you be picking out of Heath Chapman and Zach Williams in 2024?
Yeah, for me, mate, it's Zach Williams. Like I said, he's sort of climbed that mountain before. I feel a little bit safer with him in my starting squad there. Whereas a Heath Chapman, you're banking on him sort of breaking out a little bit, and even looking at his scoring, Heath Chapman just concerns me just slightly. He does the hard parts quite well, but he probably needs to find a bit of that pill. And like I said, there's a lot of experience in that back line, which means that he might not be able to jump up to the 23 to sort of 26 disposal mark that you'd like, even looking at some of these numbers. For that 100, which is his career fantasy score, it was 22 disposals, 17 kicks, 14 marks. You're sort of thinking, oh, geez, 110 plus, 115 plus. Only got the 100. In that season again, 2022, 24 disposals, 11 marks, 95. And even in 2023, a little bit more recent, 22 disposals, 8 marks, 2 tackles, 85. So just hasn't quite got that ceiling yet. And you really need a player at 491. So he's an extra, 60, 70K on top of Zach Williams you really want them popping really early. And I'm not convinced, even if he has an absolutely brilliant game, that you're necessarily going to get that.
Yeah, and I do agree with that as well. And I would be going Williams out of the 2. I think that factor of seeing him do it before does come into play, as you say. Like the Chapman's probably got the high risk, high reward one. If he pops and then you've got him, then great. But I think Williams is going to be owned by a lot more people, so you've got that sort of security blanket if something did happen. Safety in numbers. If something did happen, a lot of people are going to be affected, so not just you. Whereas Chapman, if he stays around that 10% mark, that's 1 in every 10 teams has got him. It's sort of a bit of a pod, and if something happened or he wasn't performing well, then you're sort of in a bit of a hole, and you've got to try and figure it out. But I like both. Have you got both on your side? Have you got just Williams? What are you looking like so far?
I've just got Williams, mate. Yeah, I've just got Williams. But just one more on Heath Chapman too. I mentioned all those role changes that we're hearing about and how it might be a little bit unpredictable. It works as well if something doesn't work, then all of a sudden there's another reshuffle as well. So I'm not necessarily sold on the role being as rock solid as what we would like it to be. We're already hearing halfback wing. Where is it? There's a lot of outside players that are capable at Fremantle. So for that reason, I'm going to go to Zach Williams, mate.
Yeah. Whereas, and what Zach Williams is going to do. He's playing in defence. He's going to be off halfback. He's going to have that running carry and help out with the experience back there. And hopefully, for Carlton fans, push them towards a grand final. That's exactly what they'll be wanting with Zach Williams in the side. But Yeah, so I've got both, and at this stage, Williams is pretty much locked in, and Williams Chapman is hopefully going to be a good pick as well. We'll have to see. Plenty of preseason to go, but there isn't, because we've got less than a month, or just over a month actually.
3
Time
weeks
recording.
until we start seeing some footy.
So it's coming up quick and fast. But that'll do it for another episode of the Head2Head series. Let us know in the comments below what you guys think of Heath Chapman and Zach Williams in the comments below. You guys starting with either of them or both or neither. Let us know your thoughts on either. And any other general questions, put them in the comment section below. If you did like the video, make sure you leave a like on it. Very much appreciated. Jeez, can't get my words out in this podcast. It's terrible. Make sure you also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as we're on our way to 2,000 subscribers. So if you can help out, that'd be very much appreciated. But Lewy, mate, thank you very much for jumping on and being the first member of the PodPod. Spoiler alert, we do have another couple of the PodPod members jumping on in future episodes. But, mate, where can the people find you across the socials, and where can people find both the PodPod and the coaches panel where you'll be on this year?
You can follow me on X at AFLew, LEW. You can hear me on Point of Difference podcast, the PodPod. I'm sure you've seen that around. Follow us on X there as well. And of course, the coaches panel. I'll be on that pretty frequently this year, and you can follow them on X as well. So, yeah, I'm a little bit of everywhere at the moment, but enjoying it.
Yeah, no, get around the PodPod and the coach panel, and then also follow Lewy on the socials. You can follow me at BailsDT on Twitter/X and Instagram. And then, if you're listening to this as a podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and review. That'd be very much appreciated. I'm sure me and Tim will read some of the reviews out before the season gets underway. So if you want it read out during a live Twitter space, then make sure you get a review in, because it'd be help that channel a lot. We appreciate everyone's support. Looking forward to a good 2024 season that's coming up thick and fast. So thank you very much, Lou, for jumping on. In the next episode, I'll give the guest away. It's my other AFL fantasy fanatic. It's Tim. Tim's jumping on, and we're chatting about a couple of premium mids, but they both got the bye. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion to see if you can start with them, because a lot of people are steering away from these premium mids. But we'll chat about them. Thanks very much, Lou, for jumping on, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. So we're out. Cheers.
Cheers.